The blizzard came down like frozen fury on the November night of 1882, and Penelope Jane thought she would die right there on that empty road outside Austin, Texas, wondering how a place so hot in summer could turn so bitterly cold when winter decided to make its presence known. She had been walking for 3 hours since her stagecoach broke down, the driver and other passengers choosing to stay with the vehicle while she foolishly insisted she could make it to town on foot. Pride, her mother had always said, would be her downfall. Now, stumbling along the darkened road with ice crystals forming on her eyelashes and her thin traveling dress offering about as much protection as tissue paper, Penelope realized her mother had been absolutely right. The cold seeped through her bones until she could barely feel her fingers anymore, and each breath burned in her lungs like she was swallowing broken glass. Her vision started to blur around the edges, and she knew this was bad. Really bad. The kind of bad people did not walk away from. She had heard stories of people freezing to death, how they got tired first, then sleepy, then they just lay down and never got up again. Her knees buckled and she caught herself against a fence post, the wood so cold it felt like it burned her palm. Just a little rest, she thought. Just for a moment. That was when she heard the horse. The sound of hooves crunching through the frozen ground grew louder, and Penelope tried to call out, but her voice came out as barely a whisper. She saw a dark shape materialize through the swirling snow, a rider on a large horse, and she tried to wave but her arm would not cooperate properly. "Please," she managed to croak out. The rider pulled up short and she heard a man's voice, deep and urgent. "Good God, what are you doing out here?" Strong hands gripped her shoulders and she looked up into a face partially obscured by a thick scarf and a wide-brimmed hat crusted with snow. All she could see clearly were his eyes, dark and concerned in the dim light. "I need to get to town," she whispered. "The stage broke down." "You will not make it another mile in this weather," he said. His voice had a roughness to it, like gravel rolling in a stream, but underneath was something gentle. "Can you ride?" "I think so." Without another word, he lifted her onto his horse with surprising ease, then swung up behind her. His arms came around her to grip the reins and blessed warmth radiated from his body. He pulled off his heavy coat and wrapped it around her shoulders over her own inadequate shawl. "Wait, you will freeze," she protested weakly. "I've got layers and I am used to it," he said. "You are shaking so hard I can hear your teeth chattering. My place is closer than town. We need to get you warm now." She wanted to argue, wanted to say that going to a strange man's home was improper and dangerous, but her body had other priorities. Survival trumped propriety. She nodded against his chest, and he urged the horse forward into the storm. The ride felt like it took forever, and no time at all. Penelope drifted in and out of awareness, conscious only of the steady rhythm of the horse's gait and the solid presence of the man behind her. At some point they left the road, following what must have been a trail only he could see. Then there were buildings materializing out of the white chaos, a barn and a house, both looking sturdy and well-maintained despite the harsh weather. He dismounted and pulled her down into his arms, carrying her toward the house. She should have protested this too, but she genuinely was not sure her legs would hold her. He kicked the door open and brought her inside, the relative warmth of the interior hitting her like a wave. It was not exactly warm, but compared to the brutal cold outside, it felt like heaven. He set her down in a chair near a pot-bellied stove and immediately began building up the fire. She watched through half-closed eyes as he moved with practiced efficiency, adding wood and coaxing flames to life. The firelight illuminated his features properly for the first time. He was younger than she had initially thought, probably in his late 20s, with dark hair that curled slightly where it brushed his collar, and a strong jaw covered in several days' worth of stubble. There was a scar running through his left eyebrow, giving him a roguish appearance, but his eyes held a kindness that made her feel safer. "I need to tend my horse," he said, looking at her with concern. "Can you stay awake? Do not fall asleep yet, not until we get you properly warmed up." She nodded, not trusting her voice. "I mean it," he said firmly. "Talk to yourself, sing, do whatever you have to do, but stay awake. I will be back in 5 minutes." He was true to his word, returning quickly from settling his horse in the barn. He came back through the door with snow dusting his shoulders, and immediately went to a trunk in the corner, pulling out blankets and what looked like spare clothing. "We need to get you out of those wet things," he said, then seemed to realize how that sounded and actually blushed. I will turn around. There is a screen you can change behind. These are clean, they will be too big, but they are dry." Penelope looked down at herself and realized her dress was indeed soaked through, the hem frozen stiff where it had dragged through the snow. Her fingers fumbled uselessly at the buttons. "I cannot feel my hands properly," she admitted. He hesitated, clearly torn between propriety and practicality. "May I help? I promise to be a perfect gentleman." She nodded, because what choice did she have? He was right. She needed to get warm or she was going to die, and modesty meant nothing to a corpse. His fingers were surprisingly deft as he worked the buttons free, keeping his eyes averted as much as possible. When he had loosened enough for her to shrug out of the dress, he quickly handed her a thick flannel shirt and turned his back, busying himself with heating water on the stove. She struggled into the dry clothes, a shirt that hung to her knees and a pair of wool socks that came up to her thighs. Her undergarments were damp too, but she kept those on. Priorities only went so far. "Decent," she said, her voice still shaky. He turned and gave her an approving nod, then brought over a cup of hot water with something dissolved in it. "Drink this slowly. It has got honey and whiskey. It will help warm you from the inside." The drink burned going down, but in a good way, spreading warmth through her chest. She wrapped her hands around the cup, feeling pins and needles as her fingers began to thaw. "Thank you," she said, meeting his eyes. "You saved my life." "Anyone would have done the same," he said, pulling up another chair. "I am not so sure about that. There is not exactly anyone else out here." She looked around the small but tidy cabin. "Do you live here alone?" "I do. Name is Nathan Cooper. I run cattle on the land around here, though not much running happens in winter. Mostly just trying to keep them from freezing or wandering off." "Penelope Jane," she offered. "I was on my way to Austin to take a position as a school teacher. There is supposed to be a new school opening after Christmas. Long way from wherever you started, I imagine." "Philadelphia," she said. "And yes, very long, though I have to say nobody warned me about Texas winters." He smiled at that, a genuine smile that reached his eyes and transformed his whole face. "Most folks do not believe us when we say it gets cold. They think Texas is all desert heat and tumbleweeds. But when a norther comes through, it can drop 40 degrees in an hour." This one caught everyone by surprise. They sat in companionable silence for a while as she finished her drink, and the warmth slowly seeped back into her bones. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, and she shuddered to think what would have happened if Nathan had not come along when he did. "You said you will never be cold again," she said suddenly, remembering his words from earlier. "When you found me, you said that." He looked surprised. "I did. I do not remember saying it, but I meant it. As long as you are under my roof, you will be warm and safe. That is a promise." Something about the intensity in his eyes when he said it made her heart flutter in a way that had nothing to do with the cold. She looked away, suddenly feeling shy. "I should probably try to get word to the stage company," she said. "They will be worried." Storm like this, they will have holed up wherever they broke down. Nobody is going anywhere until this passes. You are stuck here with me for at least tonight, possibly longer if the snow keeps up." The impropriety of the situation suddenly hit her. An unmarried woman, alone with an unmarried man overnight. If word got back to the school board, they would never let her teach. Her reputation would be ruined before she even started. Nathan seemed to read her thoughts. "I will sleep in the barn," he said quietly. "You can have the cabin. I have done it before. It is not so bad." "You absolutely will not," she said firmly. "You would freeze to death, and I have not survived tonight just to have your death on my conscience. We are both adults. We can be sensible about this." "You are sure? I insist. You have been nothing but kind and honorable. I trust you." And she realized, surprisingly, that she did trust him. There was something inherently decent about Nathan Cooper, something that made her feel safe, despite the unusual circumstances. They spent the evening in quiet conversation. He made them a simple supper of beans and cornbread, apologizing for the lack of variety, but to Penelope it tasted like the finest meal she had ever eaten. She learned that he had been ranching this land for 5 years, having saved up money working for other outfits before buying his own place. His parents had passed when he was young, and he had been on his own since he was 18, making his way through hard work and determination. In turn, she told him about her life in Philadelphia, about her father who had been a minister and her mother who had taught her to read before she was 4 years old. Both had died in a cholera outbreak 2 years ago, leaving her alone in the world. Teaching was the only respectable profession open to her, and the opportunity in Austin had seemed like a chance to start fresh, away from the memories and pity. "I am sorry about your parents," Nathan said softly. "It is hard, losing everyone." "You understand it, though," she said. "Most people say they are sorry, but you actually know what it feels like." "I do. There is a loneliness that comes with it, even when you are surrounded by people, like you are missing a piece of yourself." She nodded, feeling tears prick at her eyes. "Yes, exactly like that." They talked late into the night, the conversation flowing easily between them. She could not remember the last time she had felt so comfortable with someone, so understood. When exhaustion finally overtook them both, Nathan made up a bed for her on his actual bed, insisting it was the warmest spot, while he took blankets and made a pallet near the stove. "Nathan," she said into the darkness after he had banked the fire. "Yes, thank you again, for everything." "You are welcome, Penelope. Sleep well." She drifted off, listening to the wind outside and the quiet sounds of his breathing, feeling warmer and safer than she had in a very long time. Morning brought clear skies and a world transformed by snow. Penelope woke to the smell of coffee brewing and found Nathan already up, looking out the window at the winter landscape. "How deep is it?" she asked, wrapping one of the blankets around her shoulders. "About 8 inches. The road will be impassable for at least a day or two." "I am sorry, but you are stuck with me a bit longer." He did not sound particularly sorry about it, and if she was being honest with herself, neither was she. The thought should have worried her more than it did. They fell into an easy routine over the next 2 days as the snow slowly melted. Nathan tended to his cattle and horses while Penelope cleaned the cabin and prepared meals from his stores. She found herself humming while she worked, something she had not done in years. There was something peaceful about the isolation, about being cut off from the rest of the world with only each other for company. In the evenings, they would sit by the fire and talk. He taught her to play poker with matchsticks for chips, laughing when she beat him 3 hands in a row. She read aloud from his small collection of books, discovering he had a fondness for adventure stories and was surprisingly well read for a cowboy. They shared stories about their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. "You ever get lonely out here?" she asked one night. He considered the question carefully. "Sometimes, but I like the quiet too. In town there is always noise, always people wanting something from you. Out here it is just me and the land and the cattle. It is honest work, and at the end of the day I can be proud of what I have built." "I think I understand that. In Philadelphia I always felt like I was playing a role, being what people expected me to be. Proper Miss Jane, the minister's daughter. Here I can just be myself." "And who is that?" he asked, his eyes warm in the firelight. "I am still figuring that out," she admitted. "But I think I like her better than the person I was trying to be." On the third morning, Nathan declared the road passable enough to get her to Austin. Penelope felt a strange reluctance as she dressed in her own clothes, now clean and dry. The prospect of leaving this warm cabin and its owner felt wrong somehow, like she was walking away from something important. The ride to town took about 2 hours, with Nathan pointing out landmarks and telling her stories about the area. Austin was a bustling town, still rough around the edges but growing quickly. He took her directly to the boarding house where she had arranged lodging, carrying her bag to the door. "Thank you for everything," she said, suddenly feeling awkward. "I do not know how I can ever repay you." "No repayment needed. I am just glad I found you when I did." He hesitated, turning his hat in his hands. "The school is supposed to open in January, you said." "Yes, on the 15th. I come into town for supplies every couple of weeks. Maybe I could call on you sometime." If that would be acceptable, her heart leaped. "I would like that very much." His smile was brilliant. "Then I will see you soon, Penelope Jane." She watched him ride away, already counting the days until she would see him again. The weeks leading up to the school opening were busy ones. Penelope met with the school board, a group of stern-faced men who interviewed her extensively about her qualifications. She moved into her room at the boarding house, run by a kind widow named Mrs. Harper, who took an immediate liking to her. She prepared lessons and organized the small schoolhouse, grateful to have purpose and direction. But through it all, she found herself thinking about Nathan. The way he smiled, the warmth in his eyes, the sound of his laugh. She told herself she was being foolish, that she barely knew the man, but her heart did not seem to care about logic. True to his word, Nathan came to town 2 weeks after he had left her at the boarding house. He appeared at the door on a Saturday afternoon, freshly shaved and wearing his best shirt, hat in hand. "Miss Jane," he said formally, though his eyes twinkled. "I was wondering if you might like to take a walk with me." Mrs. Harper appeared behind Penelope, all smiles. "What a lovely idea. You young people enjoy yourselves. Be back before dark, dear." They walked through the town, Nathan pointing out various establishments and introducing her to people they passed. Everyone seemed to know him and think well of him, which told Penelope a lot about his character. They ended up at a small park on the edge of town, sitting on a bench overlooking a half-frozen creek. "I have been thinking about you," Nathan said quietly. "Probably more than I should." "I have been thinking about you too," she admitted. "This is going to sound crazy, but those 3 days with you were the best days I have had in years. I have never felt so comfortable with anyone, like I could say anything and you would understand." "It is not crazy. I felt it too. I still feel it." He turned to face her fully. "I know we have not known each other long. I know you have a whole new life starting here, and I do not want to complicate things for you. But I also cannot pretend I do not feel what I feel." "And what do you feel?" Her heart was pounding. "Like I found something I did not even know I was looking for. Like maybe I was meant to be out on that road that night, meant to find you. I do not believe much in fate, but this feels like something more than coincidence." Penelope reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his. I feel that too. Like everything that happened, all the hard things led me here to this moment to you. He lifted her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. Can I court you properly, Penelope? I know I am just a rancher without much to offer besides hard work and a small ranch, but I promise I will do everything I can to make you happy. Nathan Cooper, you saved my life and showed me more kindness than I had any right to expect. You make me laugh, you make me think, and you make me feel less alone in the world. You have everything to offer that matters. Is that a yes? That is absolutely a yes. From that day forward, Nathan became a regular presence in Austin. He would come to town whenever he could spare the time, always bringing small gifts, flowers in season and candies or ribbons when flowers were not available. They would walk together, have supper at the boarding house under Mrs. Harper's watchful but approving eye, and talk for hours about everything and nothing. The school opened on schedule, and Penelope threw herself into teaching with passion. She had 15 students ranging from age 6 to 14, children of ranchers and shopkeepers and craftsmen. She loved the work, loved seeing their faces light up when they mastered a new concept. Nathan would sometimes pick her up after school, and the children would gather around his horse, peppering him with questions about ranch life and begging for rides. You are good with them, Penelope observed one afternoon as he lifted a small girl onto his saddle for a quick turn around the schoolyard. Children are honest, he said. They say what they mean. I appreciate that. As winter turned to spring, their relationship deepened. Nathan introduced her to his neighbors, other ranchers and their families, and she was accepted warmly into their community. She learned to ride properly, spending Sundays out at Nathan's ranch helping with small tasks and learning about cattle and horses. She had never imagined herself as a rancher's wife, but increasingly, that was exactly what she wanted to be. One evening in early April, Nathan took her to a hill overlooking his property. Wildflowers were blooming across the prairie, painting the landscape in brilliant purples and yellows. The sun was setting, turning the sky into streaks of orange and pink. "This is my favorite spot," he said, helping her down from the horse. "I come here when I need to think or when I want to remember why I work so hard." "It is beautiful," she breathed. "Penelope, I need to ask you something, and I am going to make a mess of it because I have never done this before." He took her hands in his, looking nervous for the first time since she had known him. "I love you. I think I started loving you that first night when you insisted I not sleep in the barn even though it would have protected your reputation. You were freezing and exhausted, but you were thinking about my welfare. That is who you are, kind and generous and stronger than you know." Tears filled her eyes. "Nathan, I am not finished," he said, smiling. "I know we have only known each other a few months, but every day I am more certain that you are the person I want to spend my life with. I want to wake up next to you every morning, work beside you every day, and fall asleep holding you every night. I want to build a life with you, raise children with you, grow old with you. Penelope Jane, will you marry me?" He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it to reveal a simple gold band with a small diamond, nothing fancy but clearly chosen with care. "Yes," she said through happy tears. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. I love you too, Nathan. I think I have loved you since you wrapped me in your coat and promised I would never be cold again." He slipped the ring on her finger and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a tenderness that made her heart soar. When they finally pulled apart, both were grinning like fools. "When?" he asked. "How soon can we do this properly? The school term ends in June. We could marry then, start our life together over the summer. June feels like forever from now, but I will wait as long as I need to. You are worth waiting for." They spent the rest of the evening making plans, talking about their future with an excitement that felt boundless. Penelope would finish the school year, and they would marry in a simple ceremony at the church in Austin. She would continue teaching if she wanted to, or she could stay home and help run the ranch. The choice would be hers. Nathan wanted children, several if they were blessed, and so did she. They talked about expanding the house, adding rooms for the family they hoped to have. The next months passed in a blur of preparations. Mrs. Harper took charge of organizing the wedding with cheerful efficiency, enlisting the help of other women in town. They sewed Penelope a beautiful dress of ivory silk with lace trim, a gift from the community that had embraced her. Nathan worked on the house, adding a bedroom and expanding the kitchen, determined to have everything ready for his bride. They were married on a beautiful Saturday in mid-June, with seemingly the entire town in attendance. Penelope walked down the aisle of the small church in her handmade dress, carrying wildflowers Nathan had picked that morning. When she reached the front and saw him waiting for her, tall and handsome in his best suit with tears in his eyes, she knew with absolute certainty that this was right. "Dearly beloved," the preacher began, and Penelope barely heard the rest of the ceremony, too focused on Nathan's face, on the love shining in his eyes and the gentle pressure of his hands holding hers. When the preacher finally said, "You may kiss your bride," Nathan cupped her face in his hands and kissed her with such sweetness it took her breath away. "I love you, Mrs. Cooper," he whispered against her lips. "I love you too, Mr. Cooper." The reception was held at the town hall, with food and music and dancing that lasted well into the evening. But eventually, Nathan swept her up and carried her out to his wagon amid cheers and good-natured teasing. The ride back to the ranch, their ranch now, was peaceful in the twilight. Penelope leaned against Nathan's shoulder, perfectly content. "Happy?" he asked, kissing the top of her head. "Happier than I ever imagined I could be." When they arrived home, Nathan carried her over the threshold, a tradition she found both silly and incredibly romantic. He set her down gently in the middle of the main room, which he had decorated with candles and more wildflowers. "Welcome home, Penelope." "Home," she repeated, testing the word. "I like the sound of that." Their first night as husband and wife was everything she had hoped for, tender and passionate, and full of whispered promises. Afterward, wrapped in Nathan's arms with the windows open to let in the cool night breeze, Penelope thought back to that frozen night 6 months ago when she had been certain she was going to die alone on a dark road. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. "About how much can change in half a year, about how grateful I am that you found me." "I am the grateful one. You could have ended up anywhere with anyone, but you ended up here with me. I do not take that for granted, not for a second. You really meant it, did you not, that night when you said I would never be cold again?" He pulled her closer. "I did and I do. As long as I am alive, you will be warm and safe and loved. That is my promise to you, today and every day for the rest of our lives." She kissed him, putting all her love and gratitude into it. "And I promise the same to you. We are never going to be alone again, Nathan. We have each other now." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and it was the first night of what Penelope knew would be a lifetime of such nights. The first year of their marriage was an adjustment, learning to live together and work together as partners. Penelope discovered she loved ranch life more than she had expected. She helped Nathan with the cattle, learned to rope and brand, and became an excellent rider. She also continued teaching, taking on students from the surrounding ranches who could not make it to the town school, holding classes in their expanded home 2 days a week. Nathan proved to be an attentive and loving husband, always considerate of her needs and dreams. They worked side by side during the day and fell into each other's arms at night, their passion for each other never diminishing, but rather deepening as they learned each other's bodies and hearts more fully. In the spring of their second year together, Penelope realized she was pregnant. She told Nathan one evening after supper, watching his face carefully as the news sank in. "A baby," he said, his voice full of wonder. "We are going to have a baby. Yes, sometime in October, I think." He let out a whoop of joy and picked her up, spinning her around until she laughed and begged him to put her down. "I am going to be a father," he kept saying, like he could not quite believe it. "We are going to be parents." "How do you feel about that?" she asked. "Terrified," he admitted. "And more excited than I have ever been about anything." "Are you scared?" "A little. But mostly I am happy. I keep thinking about a little person who is part you and part me, and it makes my heart feel too big for my chest." He placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "Hello in there, little one. We are your parents and we already love you so much." Penelope's pregnancy progressed smoothly through the summer. Nathan became almost comically protective, trying to prevent her from doing any work that might be too strenuous. She had to finally put her foot down when he suggested she stop riding entirely. "I am pregnant, not fragile," she told him firmly. "Women have been having babies and doing hard work since the beginning of time. I will be careful, but I am not going to spend the next 6 months sitting in a chair doing nothing." He had the grace to look sheepish. "You are right. I am sorry, I just worry. I know, and I love you for it, but trust me to know my own limits." Their son was born on a crisp October morning after a labor that lasted through the night. Nathan stayed with her the whole time, holding her hand and wiping her brow, looking almost as exhausted as she felt by the time the baby finally arrived. But when the midwife placed the squalling infant in Penelope's arms, all the pain and exhaustion faded away. "He is perfect," she breathed, examining the tiny fingers and toes. "He is incredible," Nathan agreed, his voice thick with emotion. "You are incredible. I have never been so proud of anyone in my life." They named him Samuel Nathan Cooper, after Nathan's father and grandfather. Sam was a good baby, healthy and strong, and watching Nathan with their son made Penelope fall in love with her husband all over again. He was gentle and patient with the infant, singing lullabies in his deep voice and walking the floor at night when Sam was fussy so Penelope could rest. "You are a natural at this," she told him one night, watching him rock their son back to sleep. "I had good examples," he said. "I might have been young when my parents died, but I remember how my father was with me, kind and present. I want to be that for Sam." As Sam grew from infant to toddler, their lives settled into a new rhythm. The ranch prospered under Nathan's careful management, and they were able to hire a hand to help with the work. Penelope taught less frequently but never stopped entirely, finding she needed that outlet for her mind even as she loved being a mother. When Sam was 2, Penelope became pregnant again. Their daughter, Rose Annabelle, arrived the following summer, and their family felt complete. Rose had Penelope's auburn hair and Nathan's dark eyes, and from the moment she could crawl, she was following her older brother everywhere. The years passed in a blur of ordinary joys and challenges. They weathered droughts and hard winters, celebrated good years, and tightened their belts during lean ones. They watched their children grow, Sam becoming a serious and thoughtful boy who loved working with his father, Rose a spirited and clever girl who could talk her way into or out of anything. On their 10th anniversary, Nathan took Penelope back to the hill where he had proposed. The children were staying with neighbors for the night, giving them a rare evening alone. "You remember standing here 10 years ago?" Nathan asked, his arm around her waist. "I remember thinking my heart was going to burst from happiness," she said. "I remember feeling like my real life was finally beginning. Do you ever regret it? Choosing this life instead of staying in town, teaching full-time?" She turned to look at him, really look at him. There was silver threading through his dark hair now, and lines around his eyes from squinting into the sun, but he was still the most handsome man she had ever seen. "Not for a single second. This life, this family, it is everything I never knew I wanted." "I love you more now than I did that day I proposed," he said. "I did not think that was possible, but every year with you makes me love you more. Even when I burn supper, especially then, because you laugh about it instead of getting upset. Even when you are arguing with me about whether we need a new bull. Even when you are exhausted from being up all night with one of the kids, but you still get up and make breakfast with a smile. You are the strongest, kindest, most incredible person I know. Stop, you are going to make me cry. Good tears, I hope, the best tears." She kissed him long and deep. "Thank you for finding me that night, Nathan. Thank you for keeping your promise that I would never be cold again. You have kept me warm too, you know. Before you, I had a house but not a home. I had land and cattle but nothing that really mattered. You gave me a family, a purpose beyond just surviving. You gave me everything." They stood there as the sun set, watching the sky turn brilliant colors, holding each other the way they had 1,000 times before and would 1,000 times more. When Sam was 12 and Rose was 10, Nathan sat them down for a serious talk. "Your mother and I have been discussing expanding our operation," he said. "There is land adjacent to ours that has come up for sale. If we bought it, we could double our herd, maybe hire more hands. But it would mean taking on debt, and it would mean harder work for all of us for a few years." "I want to do it," Sam said immediately. "I can help more, Pa. I am strong enough." "I can help too," Rose insisted. "I can do anything Sam can do." Penelope smiled at her daughter's fierce determination. "We know you can, sweetheart, but this is a family decision and we all have to agree. It would mean fewer trips to town, less money for extras for a while. Are you both sure?" The children looked at each other, then nodded in unison. "We are sure," Rose said. "This is our home. We want to make it even better." So they bought the land and expanded the ranch. It was hard work, just as Nathan had warned, but they did it together. Sam proved himself to be a natural cattleman, with an eye for livestock that rivaled his father's. Rose surprised everyone by showing a talent for breaking horses, gentle but firm in a way that won the animals' trust quickly. Penelope divided her time between the house and the range, cooking for the hired hands, tending her garden, and still occasionally teaching children from neighboring ranches. But her favorite times were the evenings when they would all gather on the porch after supper, Nathan playing his guitar while she and the children sang along, watching the stars come out over their land. When Sam turned 18, a pretty girl from a neighboring ranch caught his eye. Her name was Clara, and she was sweet and hardworking, everything Penelope could have hoped for in a daughter-in-law. They married the following year, and Nathan helped them build a small house on the far side of the property. "Our boy is all grown up," Penelope said the night of the wedding, watching Sam dance with his new bride. "He is a good man," Nathan said proudly. "We raised him right. We did we not? I wish your parents could see him and Rose. I think they would be proud." "I think so too. And your parents would be proud of you, of the life you have built." Rose showed no interest in settling down, much to her parents' amusement. She was too busy running the horse breeding program she had convinced Nathan to start, developing a reputation for quality animals that brought buyers from all over Texas. "I might get married someday," she told her mother when Penelope gently asked. "But right now, I have too much to do. These horses are not going to train themselves." Penelope laughed and hugged her fierce, independent daughter, remembering her own younger self, and how she had felt trapped by society's expectations for women. She was glad Rose did not feel that same pressure, glad her daughter could chart her own course. On their 20th anniversary, Sam and Clara gave them their first grandchild, a boy they named Nathan after his grandfather. Holding his tiny namesake, Nathan Cooper Sr. looked at his wife with tears in his eyes. "We did it," he said softly. "We built a family, a legacy. This little one will grow up on this land and maybe his children after him." From two people who had lost everyone, Penelope marveled. "We created all this. It is pretty remarkable when you think about it." Over the next few years, 2 more grandchildren arrived, and the ranch house rang with the sound of children's laughter once again. Sam proved to be an excellent father, patient and kind like Nathan had been. Rose remained unmarried but was the favorite aunt, always up for adventures and mischief with her nieces and nephew. As Penelope and Nathan entered their 50s, they began to gradually hand over more of the ranch operations to Sam and Rose. Nathan taught his son everything he knew about managing cattle and land, while Rose had long since taken over complete control of the horse program. It gave them time to simply enjoy each other's company after years of hard work. They would take long rides across their property, just the two of them like in the early days of their marriage. They would sit on the porch in the evenings, Nathan's hand always finding Penelope's, talking about everything and nothing. They traveled occasionally, visiting places they had always wanted to see, but they were always glad to come home. "You ever think about that night?" Penelope asked one cold November evening, almost identical in temperature to the night they had met 27 years earlier. They were sitting by the fire in the house that had been expanded and improved over the years, but was still fundamentally the same cabin where Nathan had saved her life. "I think about it all the time," Nathan admitted. "I think about how close I came to not riding out that night. I had been tired, ready to just stay put. But something told me to go check the road, and there you were. My guardian angel," she said, squeezing his hand. "More like you were mine. You saved me just as much as I saved you, Penelope. I was existing before you, not really living. You taught me how to open my heart again, how to trust, how to love. We saved each other then." I think that is the truth of it. When Penelope was 58, she fell ill with pneumonia. Nathan did not leave her side for 3 weeks, nursing her with the same tender care he had shown that first night when he warmed her by his fire. Sam and Rose took over running the ranch completely so their father could focus on their mother. "You cannot die on me," Nathan told her during one particularly bad night. "You promised me we would grow old together, and I am holding you to that." "I am not planning on going anywhere," she said weakly. "I still have too much living to do," and she fought because that was what Penelope did. She fought her way back to health, growing stronger each day until finally the doctor declared her out of danger. Nathan cried when he heard the news, unashamed tears of relief streaming down his weathered face. "I was so scared," he admitted. "I could not imagine this world without you in it." "You are not getting rid of me that easily, Nathan Cooper. We made a promise to each other, remember? Never cold, never alone. I intend to keep that promise until we are both old and gray and our great-grandchildren are visiting us." And that was exactly what they did. Over the next years, they watched their family continue to grow. Rose eventually did marry, a quiet rancher from a neighboring property who understood her need for independence and supported her work with the horses. She had 2 children of her own, both girls who inherited their mother's way with animals. Sam and Clara had 2 more children, and all 5 of their offspring grew up running wild across the ranch that their grandfather had built from nothing. The original small cabin had been preserved, renovated into a kind of shrine to the couple's early days. while the main house had grown into a sprawling ranch house that could accommodate the whole family when they gathered for holidays. On their 40th anniversary, surrounded by children and grandchildren and even a few great-grandchildren, Nathan stood up at the dinner table to make a toast. 40 years ago today, I married the most incredible woman I had ever met, he said, his voice still strong despite his 70 years. She was a city girl who had never been on a ranch, never ridden a horse, never imagined this life. But she took a chance on a simple cowboy who had nothing to offer but hard work and love. "Best decision I ever made," Penelope called out to laughter and applause from the gathered family. "We have been blessed beyond measure," Nathan continued. "With family, with prosperity, with love that has only grown deeper with time. But none of this would exist if I had not decided to ride out on a freezing night 41 years ago and found this woman nearly frozen on the side of the road. I promised her that night that she would never be cold again, and I have spent every day since making sure I kept that promise. But she has given me so much more in return. She gave me warmth when I did not even know I was cold. She gave me a family when I thought I would always be alone. She gave me a reason to build something that would last beyond my own life." He turned to Penelope, tears in his eyes. "Thank you, my love, for saying yes, for taking a chance, for building this life with me. I love you more today than I did the day we married, and I will love you more tomorrow than I do today." The whole family erupted in applause as Nathan leaned down to kiss his wife. Penelope looked around at all the faces, at the family they had created together, at the legacy of love they were leaving behind, and felt her heart could not possibly hold any more happiness. But she was wrong. There was always more love, more joy, more moments to treasure. Like the day their first great-great-grandchild was born, a little girl who had Penelope's auburn hair and Nathan's dark eyes. Like the quiet mornings when they would sit on the porch drinking coffee and watching the sun rise over land that had been in their family for over 40 years. Like the evenings when the whole family would gather and the grandchildren would beg Nathan to tell the story of how he met their grandmother. "Tell us about the blizzard, Grandpa," they would plead, and he would launch into the tale they had all heard 100 times but never tired of. "It was the coldest night I could remember," he would begin, "and I almost did not ride out. But something told me to check the road, and there she was, your beautiful grandmother, frozen and lost and looking like an angel in the snow. And you saved her," the children would chorus, knowing their parts in this family legend. "I kept her warm," Nathan would correct, "but she saved me just as much. She saved my heart, my soul, my life. She made me believe in second chances and new beginnings." And Penelope would smile, remembering that scared young woman on a frozen road who had no idea that the worst night of her life was about to become the best. She would look at Nathan, at his weathered face and the love in his eyes that had never dimmed in over 4 decades, and she would fall in love with him all over again. They lived well into their 70s, blessed with good health and sharp minds. They saw the ranch grow and prosper under Sam and Rose's management, saw their grandchildren marry and have children of their own, saw the family legacy they had created spread roots deep into Texas soil. One evening in late autumn, very similar to the night they had met so many years before, they sat on the porch wrapped in blankets, watching the sunset. Nathan's arm was around Penelope's shoulders, her head resting against his chest like it had 1,000 times before. "It has been a good life, has it not?" Nathan said quietly. "The very best," Penelope agreed. "Better than anything I could have imagined when I was that foolish young woman walking through a blizzard. Not foolish, brave. You have always been the bravest person I know." "I had good reason to be brave. I had you waiting for me, even before I knew it." They sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned from orange to pink to purple. The air was getting cold, winter approaching once again, but wrapped in Nathan's arms with 43 years of love warming her from the inside, Penelope did not feel the chill. "Are you cold?" Nathan asked, like he still did after all these years. "No," she said, smiling up at him. "I am not cold. I have never been cold since the night you found me. You kept your promise, Nathan Cooper." "And I always will," he said, kissing the top of her head. "For as long as I live and beyond, you will never be cold again." As the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, they remained there, two souls who had found each other in the darkness and cold and had built a life filled with warmth and light. Their love had created a family, a legacy, a future that would extend far beyond their own lives. And every cold night, when the wind howled and the temperature dropped, someone in their family would remember the story of how it all began. A scared young woman on a frozen road, a cowboy who stopped to help, a promise made in the darkness that would shape generations to come. A love that had weathered every storm and grown stronger with each passing year. It was a simple story in many ways, but it was theirs, and it was perfect. The years continued to roll by with the gentle persistence of seasons changing. Nathan and Penelope remained active well into their late 70s, though they moved a bit slower and needed more rest. They had rocking chairs made specially for their aging bodies, and they would sit in them every evening without fail, holding hands and watching their world continue to grow and thrive. Sam had become a pillar of the ranching community, respected for his honesty and skill. He and Clara had created their own beautiful marriage, full of the same warmth and partnership they had witnessed in his parents. Rose's horse breeding program had become renowned throughout Texas, and she had trained several young people in her methods, ensuring that knowledge would continue. When Nathan was 79 and Penelope 77, they knew their time was growing short. Neither spoke of it directly, but there was an understanding between them, that deep, wordless communication that comes from a lifetime together. They began to put their affairs in order, making sure everything was clear for the children, writing letters to grandchildren and great-grandchildren to be opened after they were gone. One winter morning, Nathan woke to find Penelope watching him with tender eyes. "What is it?" he asked, reaching for her hand. "I was just thinking how lucky I am, how grateful. You gave me everything, Nathan. A home, a family, a love that has sustained me through everything. I would not change a single moment, even the hard times. Especially the hard times, because we faced them together. That is what made them bearable." He pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, still touched with auburn though mostly silver now. "I have loved you every single day since I found you in that snow. I will love you every day after, no matter what comes. Promise me something," she said softly. "Anything. When one of us goes, the other has to keep living. Really living, not just existing. Our family will need us, need our strength and wisdom. Promise me you will stay strong, Penelope." "Promise me, Nathan. I need to know." "I promise. But you have to promise the same." "I do. I promise." They held each other as the winter sun rose, two people who had loved each other through more than 4 decades of joy and sorrow, triumph and struggle, always together, always united. Nathan passed first, peacefully in his sleep on a cool spring morning just after his 80th birthday. Penelope woke to find him beside her, looking peaceful and younger somehow, free from pain and worry. She did not cry out or panic. Instead, she held his hand one final time, kissed his forehead and whispered, "Thank you for keeping me warm, my love. I will see you again." The funeral brought family from all over Texas, a testament to the life Nathan had lived and the family he had created. His children spoke of his kindness and strength, his grandchildren of his wisdom and humor. But it was Penelope who gave the final tribute, standing straight and strong despite her grief. "My husband was a simple man by his own reckoning," she said, her voice clear and steady. "He did not seek fame or fortune. He wanted land to work, a family to love, and a purpose to his days. He achieved all that and so much more. He built not just a ranch but a legacy of hard work and integrity. He raised children who are good and kind. He loved me with a devotion that never wavered in over 43 years of marriage." She paused, looking at the faces of their descendants, seeing Nathan's features echoed in so many of them. "He found me on the coldest night of my life and promised I would never be cold again. He kept that promise every single day. Even now, feeling his loss like a physical ache, I am not cold. The warmth of his love, the family we created together, the memories we made, all of that keeps me warm. That is his final gift to me and to all of you. The warmth of love that does not die when the body does." True to her promise, Penelope did not simply exist after Nathan's death. She lived. She remained in the ranch house, surrounded by family, sharing her wisdom and stories. She taught her great-grandchildren to read, just as she had taught their parents and grandparents. She tended her garden, now maintained mostly by others, but still a source of joy. She sat on the porch every evening in her rocking chair next to Nathan's empty one, and she talked to him, telling him about her day and the family news. The family worried about her, but she reassured them. "I am not alone," she would say. "I carry your grandfather with me in here." She would touch her heart. "And I will be with him again when my time comes. Until then, I have all of you, and that is more than enough." Penelope lived another 3 years after Nathan's passing, years filled with love and purpose. She saw more great-great-grandchildren born, witnessed Sam's grandson take over a portion of the ranch operations, and was there when Rose finally retired from active horse training at the age of 70. On a November evening, exactly 50 years after the night Nathan had found her in the snow, Penelope asked to be taken to that spot on the road where her life had changed forever. Her grandson drove her there in a wagon, wrapped in blankets against the cold. "This is where it all began," she said, looking at the road that was now well-traveled and maintained, no longer the lonely track it had been half a century ago. "I was so scared that night, certain I was going to die. I had no idea I was about to find the greatest blessing of my life." "Tell me the story, grandmother," her grandson said, though he had heard it many times. So she did, one last time. She told him about the blizzard and the fear, about the sound of horse hooves and the deep voice asking what she was doing out there, about the coat wrapped around her shoulders and the ride to safety, about the warmth of the cabin and the kindness in Nathan's eyes, about falling in love and building a life and creating a family from nothing but determination and devotion. "He promised I would never be cold again," she finished, her eyes distant with memory. "And here I am, 50 years later, and I am still not cold. Even without him beside me, I am warm with the love we shared and the family we created. That is the power of true love, you see. It does not end when one person leaves. It continues on, warming everyone it touches, generation after generation." That night, Penelope went to bed in the house Nathan had built for her, in the bed they had shared for so many years. She fell asleep thinking of him, remembering his smile and his laugh, and the way he had always reached for her hand. She dreamed of that first night, of being found in the cold and carried to warmth and safety. She dreamed of their wedding day, of their children being born, of 1,000 quiet moments that had made up their life together. In the morning, when her daughter Rose came to check on her, Penelope was gone, a peaceful smile on her face as if she had seen something wonderful in her final moments. The family gathered once more to celebrate a life well lived and a love that had become legendary. They laid her to rest beside Nathan under a large oak tree on a hill overlooking the ranch, the same hill where he had proposed so many years before. The headstone was simple but perfect. Nathan Cooper, 1853–1933, Penelope Jane Cooper, 1855–1933, together always. Never cold, never alone. The ranch continued to thrive under the care of subsequent generations, each one adding their own chapter to the story that had begun on a frozen night in 1882. The tale of how Nathan found Penelope became family legend, told and retold around dinner tables and campfires, a reminder of where they all came from and the love that had started it all. The cabin where Penelope had spent her first night was preserved and maintained, becoming a kind of family museum. Young couples would visit it on their wedding day, hoping some of that legendary love would bless their own marriages. The rocking chairs where Nathan and Penelope had spent their evenings were kept on the porch of the main house, and family members would sit in them when they needed to feel close to their ancestors or to think through difficult decisions. Years turned into decades, and still the family flourished. They faced challenges, droughts and economic hardships, family disagreements and personal tragedies. But through it all, they held on to the lessons Nathan and Penelope had taught them through their lives and their love. Work hard, stay honest, face challenges together, and never take for granted the warmth of family and home. On the 100th anniversary of the night Nathan found Penelope, the family gathered at the ranch for a grand celebration. Descendants came from all over the country, some who had moved away but still considered the ranch their heart's home. They numbered in the hundreds now, all tracing their lineage back to two people who had found each other in a snowstorm and decided to build a life together. The oldest living member of the family, Nathan and Penelope's great-great-granddaughter, stood to address the gathering. At 92 years old, she could remember meeting her great-grandmother as a young child, could recall Penelope's gentle voice and warm hugs. "I want to tell you all something my great-grandmother told me when I was just a girl," she said. I had asked her what the secret was to her and great-grandfather's happy marriage. She laughed and said there was no secret, just a choice they made every single day. They chose to be kind to each other. They chose to work as partners. They chose to face problems together instead of turning on each other. They chose love every single day, even on the days when it was hard. She looked around at all the faces, seeing Nathan's dark eyes and Penelope's auburn hair scattered throughout the crowd. That is their legacy to us. Not this land, though it is beautiful. Not the ranch, though it has sustained us. Their real legacy is showing us what it means to love truly and deeply, to build something lasting, to create warmth in a cold world. Every time we choose kindness over anger, partnership over selfishness, love over fear, we honor them. We keep their promise alive. As the sun set over the ranch that evening, as it had set thousands of times before over the land Nathan and Penelope had claimed as their own, the family stood together on the hill where they were buried. Someone began to sing, an old hymn about eternal love, and others joined in until the hill rang with voices, old and young, all connected by the choices two people had made so long ago. The wind blew cold that November night, just as it had 100 years before, but the people on that hill did not feel it. They were wrapped in the warmth of family, of belonging, of love that had transcended death and time. They were proof that Nathan had kept his promise. Penelope had never been cold again, because the warmth they created together had spread to touch everyone who came after them. And somewhere, in whatever place souls go when their earthly journey ends, Nathan and Penelope Cooper held hands and smiled, watching their family, and knowing that their love story was still being told, still inspiring, still keeping people warm on cold winter nights. They had started with nothing but each other and built an empire of love that would last forever. That was their gift to the world, proof that true love exists, that one moment of kindness can change everything, that a promise made in darkness can light up generations. Nathan had found Penelope in the cold and vowed she would never be cold again. He had kept that promise in life and beyond death, and it would continue to be kept as long as anyone remembered their story and the incredible love that had created it all.